What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. You get these goofy, silly, crazy, delusional white folks who going around mad that a mixed black woman playing Cleopatra and these old white Turks who are in North Africa, they are the result of just various different forms, degree of admixture. They're not indigenous to nothing. This also should tell you Negroes that when you start mating with these mulattoes, that they're going to turn against your silly asses. But I digress on that. I'm going to turn to page 184 in this book. And this book is tore up, man. But I've read this book so many times. This is Ancient and Modern Britain. This is volume 2. All right? I'm going to page 184. Oops, I'm going to go right here. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Okay, if I can get a good angle. Get the little camera here. Okay, and here we go. And if I can get it clear in, unquestionably, the power of the kings of early Scotland, the outlines of which country have just been indicated, increased tremendously during the 20th century. And see, in that 12th century, my bad. In that century, the great territory known as the Moors country, I repeat, in that century, the great territory known as the Moors country was annexed, its natives half exterminated, and the remnant placed upon various reservations throughout Scotland, their most fertile districts being handed over to such peaceful people, as the Flemish colonists. Moreover, the same kings that subdued this northern territory directed their arms against various other nationalities in the south and west of North Britain, reducing them to at least a nominal subjection. And this century, Mr. Skene assures us, is the period from which we ought to date the successful assertion in North Britain of Norman ideas and usage. It is clear then that the early Scotland of the 12th century, the northeastern portion of modern Scotland, is the germ out of which the later Scottish nationalities was developed. And if the laws and customs of early Scotland were largely Norman, and the blood of its aristocracies also Norman to considerable extent, it is equally clear that the Flemish element was largely represented too. Not only is this to be surmised from the fact that the Normans were assisted everywhere by Flemish allies, and from the fact that various North British pedigrees prove the same thing, but also because the ways of the townspeople of northeastern Scotland, as elsewhere in Britain, are very plainly Flemish. It is stated that in the early part of the last century, and probably there is no appreciable difference at the present day, the Flemish style of building was common in all of the towns of the Murray Frith. Murray Moor. The steady influx of Dutch immigrants into various parts of Britain during many centuries after the Norman conquest, and the fact that this immigration, because silent, has been greatly overlooked by historians, has been pointed out by living authority, and this immigration cannot be overlooked. For those very people, being traders, agriculturalists, burghers, are precisely the people who ought to be most considered in any question affecting the pedigree of modern Britons. Such people do not figure in gypsy battles of the kind we have been glancing at. Soldiers they have shown themselves to be at various dates, but not mere fighters for fighting snake. It must be of this kind of Scotchman that the saying arose, a Scot will not fight until he sees his own blood. Such a proverb could by no possibility have been applicable to the wild tribes of Scotland. Call them Scots, or moss troopers, or Egyptians, or Tartarians, or whatever name may seem most suitable according to locality and epoch. Men of this kind were roused to anger and bloodshed by a single word. They lived for nothing else but fighting. They drew their substance, from the soil or from peaceful barter and manufacture, but from the spoils which they gather by violence from others. They carried on a constant vendetta with like-natured tribes. Their neighbors and rivals never forget. Let me get that right. Never forgetting an injury and handing down their blood feuds from father to son intermittently. Therefore, when you have two kinds of people occupying one country for many centuries, the one living as peacefully as possible, encouraging industry and learning and religion, and making laws to foster the growth of these, the other continuing generation after generation to rob, murder at every opportunity. And when you know, as we do know with regards to Scotland, that the former party gained more and more, century after century, the direction of the government of that country. And we will continue to go on. It gets good. Okay, you cannot but see that the ultimate ascendancy of their ideas and laws denote a racial victory. Since the people who believe in settled laws, in order, in education, architecture, and in the advance of civilization, eventually became the victors, it is clear that the people who did not believe in any of these things must have waned as the others increased, and have only saved themselves from extermination by announcing the life of their ancestors. All right. But when we first dimly see this conflict of opinions in Scotland, namely in the 12th century, the winning party was partly clearly composed of white races. And the people whom they overcame and whose lands they appropriated for the uses of civilization were more distinctly of black complexion. I repeat that, look at it. And the people whom they overcame and whose land they appropriated for the uses of civilization were more distinctly of black complexion, being the nimble blackamoors or Claudinian with their conquerors, somewhat different in manners, but also thirsting for blood, the Scot Egyptians or gypsies, and in the Borderville or Borderlands, as elsewhere, various clans descended from the black heathen Danes. Okay. It is important to consider this, because although we have seen, I'm going to go up and then I'm just going to read from the book. Although we have seen that various British gypsies regarded as unmixed gypsies by more than one modern gypsytologist are quite void of any trace of black blood, yet there can be no doubt that the great portion of the unreclaimed section of the British people, properly called gypsies, are of swarthy skin. That means dark skin. That means black. That, in the estimation of most men, to be like a gypsy is to be a black-haired, black-eyed, and a dark complexion. Okay. Therefore, in whatever way the white gypsy may be accounted for, it is plain that the Orthodox gypsy is descended from at least two of the black races of Britain. I repeat, therefore, in whatever way the white gypsy may be accounted for, it is plain that the Orthodox gypsy is descended from at least two of the black races of Britain. At least two, because a diligent student of such people has told us that even in England, they are straight-haired and curly-haired Romanis. The two indicate not a difference resulting from white admixture, but entirely different original stocks. Because also regard to Scotland, we have seen that not only at least two, but at least three black races have entered that country. Yeah. The nimble blackamoors, not wrongly named the painted folk, the black herds of Egyptians or Scots, and the black heathen, pirates from Kimbric channels. None of these races were the ultimate rulers of any part of Britain. And although nowadays the dark whites and the fair whites of our country have long been inextricably mingled, yet the white element is beyond a doubt numerically the greater, and the prevailing modern British sentiment is distinctly white, while the proper speech is full of expressions that render a black a synonym, whether justly or from mere racial hatred, for everything that is objectionable. Now, I'm going to stop there, man. This is from Ancient and Modern Britain. This is volume 2. Right? This is talking about black people of a certain region. I mentioned before that Scotland really, I think I did mention this, that Scotland was really named after Queen Scotia, which is one of Akhenaten's daughters, who went into the British Isles. And Scotland was named after her. And you know, I talked about before how you see images of many stag hunts with Egyptians. You see greyhound dogs that's based over in Europe, particularly like Britain. And then you'll see images sometimes of rabbits, which is like Spain, Southern Europe. And then you see the later on, Anubis, the Jolat dog, which is America/Asia. I want to always throw that connection. There was always a connection between the various different black groups around the world. And I'm saying this, I'm trying to tie this in. I hear a lot of our people say, the hell with ancient Egypt, that's not our history, that's not culture, that's wrong. And people will tell you that they're being ignorant, because there's always a tie, because the black civilizations in America, particularly in South America, they built pyramids, great structures there, and they built great structures over in northeastern Africa. They had that pyramid knowledge over here, and they had it over Africa. There was a connection, obviously a connection there. And to sit there and say we don't need to know that is being ignorant. And there's too many ignorant Negroes running around claiming they know stuff, but they don't know anything. I mentioned before about the Serpent Kings being in America, particularly South America, and the serpent mounds and structures that you find in North America, all through North America, and you saw like a lot of them are throughout the Ohio Valley area. Then I talk about the Minoan snake goddess, the Minoan snake goddess is over in Canada with some Olmec style heads. There's an image of a female god. The place is basically deteriorated, but you see an image of a snake goddess, a female goddess carved into rock. Somewhere I want to say Alberta, Canada. You see an image of a woman and then some men with helmets in their head like the Olmec. and it's all in Canada. So all that the snake goddess that you find in Canada, and those serpents that you find all through North America, serpent mounds, and those images of the serpent kings who ruled South America, man. Remember, I showed you images before of I want to say was it either Pharaoh Tutankhamun or Akhenaten. You just seen the one of them just had this old South American symbol with the serpent, and the other has the two crowns. Over here in South America and over in Africa. Uh, and I'm tying this in together because what they explain to you is that there's very different types of black people in here in the Americas. It wasn't just one type of black person group. There was very different groups that were here in America. There was some that were more advanced. There was other that were nomadic. You had that over in Europe. All right, you had very different black groups over here. Remember, I emphasized the Black Danes, the Black Pirates. All right, the Black Danes, the Black Pirates, the Black Vikings. All right, you had various different black people, black groups entering different areas within Europe, but this is dealing with the British Isles. All right, these were not white folks. White folks not indigenous to nothing. So you have to understand that, and he also understands that where did even black folks go? They all didn't die off. A lot of them were forced out and shipped here to America. But then there was some who was coming to America much earlier on their own. I'm trying to emphasize this, brothers and sisters, is to stop this mess that you brought here in a slave ship from Africa. I'm trying to emphasize this, man. You had various different black groups that were over here. But see, some of my people want to harness on the least amount that came over here was some so-called African slaves, where there's so many damn different groups of black people already here, and then you had the black people of Europe being expelled, coming to America. We are is what we are. All right. I said that we're not African, which we're not African. We're Aboriginal to this land, but we do have black people, black Europeans who mixed in. Now, some of us may not have that fine, but I'm just telling you that for a good majority of us, that is a high probability. That in fact that is what it is. So there's those mixture of those black groups, like I said, what you call so-called black Mongoloid groups, and the black groups. You had a few African groups here, African slaves, but majority of people, like I always emphasize, are already here, and there's various different people that were over here. I wanted to do another book about smelting of iron, and it's a pretty good book, but I want to just talk about that. We need to emphasize that there was various different black groups over here. See, I keep saying, and I just said it, our people so fixated and just being brought over here in a ship. They need to stop that. And we gotta be more sophisticated, think more critically about history and about who we are, instead of just taking it for face value. You gotta dig deep into it. You have to understand that white people are trying to steal that North Africa part because they've been claiming Greece so long, even though the real Greeks, the original Greeks, were black. When you look at a lot of those white people in Greece today, ain't nothing but mulattoes, man. You can tell those are mulattoes, quadroons. You can look at the women and the men, they're mulattoes. Just like these Turks and not the original Arabs. The original Arabs look like those people in northern Sudan, man. And southern Arabia. Those are the original Arabs. The original Arabs are black people, all right? Those are mulattoes, man. You can tell they're mixed breed people. You look at them. Zahid Awaz hollering about the Egyptian one black. He's a mulatto Turk, man. You can look at these people and tell these some freaking mulattoes, man. Look at their freaking hair. Look at this. Their skin could tan a little bit. And look at certain features with their mouth and nose. Goddamn, you can tell, man. We got to get very critical with this. You can tell. But maybe I just been studying for years. I noticed I could pick these mulattoes out, man. And that's all they are. But then they hate black folks. They probably hate black folks so much. This is my theory throwing out this, because the fact is that their mamas were slaves, and the black people who they hate so much was the master over their white mamas. They ruled their white mamas. The white mamas were in these harems of these black sultan rulers. And their mamas were slaves, and they were the bastard babies from those unions. That's what they were. Well, that's really, and they're the descendant of that. So they're descendants of indigenous blacks and whites who were brought over there as slaves, particularly white women. And them Negroes procreated with the white women, and they are the result over years of mulatto bastards. And that's what they are. They're not indigenous to nothing. I said this in other videos. The only race of people that can be pure are black people. Period. So-called black people. They're the only ones that can be pure. Because white folks come from us. All right, white folks are, and I mentioned before, a genetic mutation version of us. And then the mixture of black and white and the various degrees of mixture between create these other groups of people, like these so-called Latinos. Now, I'm talking about the black ones. These so-called Latinos. They're Asians. The quote, Indians who are not black, even though you still have a large number of black people in India. All right? And they had that dark skin because that's their black blood. They can deny it all they want. They had that dark skin. But you look at a lot of those Indians, they're mulattoes. And this is just nothing but a various degree of mixture. And you see of Asians, and you see some of the people in the Pacific Islands, like the Polynesian Islands and the Micronesia Islands. These are nothing but mulattoes. And then when you create these mulattoes, they end up turning against your black asses. So I keep telling you, you cannot procreate outside your race, because eventually you're going to turn against your ass. People don't want to hear that. I'm telling you, I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest with you. You don't want to hear it, you're going to hear it. You cannot procreate outside of your race, or you're going to get modern day Tunisia and how they treat them damn Africans. You're going to get modern day Morocco, how they treat them damn Africans. You're going to get modern day Egypt, how they treat them damn Africans. You're going to get what you get in Cuba or them Latin American countries, how they treat the Aboriginal black people there. Man, most of the Negroes are descendants of the Aboriginal black people there. They're people that brought over there slaves. Yes, there's some slaves brought over there, but they mixed in with the other blacks. And they've lost their identity. Many of them don't know that. Many of them just believe they just came over a slave ship. And when you look at a lot of those black people in Mexico, I can tell some of them look like some blacks from the Pacific Island. Some of them look like some Australian type blacks. Some of them look like they may be some blacks from the Congo. And some are obviously some Aboriginal blacks from North America went there. So there's various different types of blacks in Mexico. Mexico. And our people need to understand this, man. You have to do your research. You have to do your research. And this is why it's important to do the research, to do the studying, to do the cross-referencing, do all that stuff. The information is there, but you're going to have to seek it and want to seek it and want to learn it. White folks not indigenous to nothing, man. The original Vikings came over here with nigger Vikings. I mentioned Thorhall and his rhyming. And I think one of my videos, I told about the dude, when he was speaking in a rhyme. All you got to do is throw a beat, and he's basically rhyming. I talk about iron smelting. When Thor went to the dwarf to smelt his hammer. All this stuff ties in, man. This stuff is in your face. I talk about Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge. Atan. 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 Akhenaten. Akhenaten. Amenhotep. Akhenaten. Atan. Baton Rouge. Atan. Akhenaten. Atan. It's just right in your face, man. This information is right staring you in your face, man. It's right there in your face. And some people get mad. I'm just playing with words. No, I'm not playing with words. Isn't it a coincidence that all this just comes out, these names, it's like one letter was changed and it sounds so similar? Because these two lands, the people ruled on multiple lands. They just say situated in one area. This is information that our people need to know. All right, stop this message you just brought over here slaves from Africa. And when people continue to push that, man, tell me you ignorant. You don't know nothing. And it angers me, man, because the information's there. Damn, it's there. And you got these fools still teaching, miseducating our people. I might do another book about iron smelted again because, like I said before, some of the mounds they found iron in there, and I mentioned in my other video I talked about iron smelting. Like I just said about Thor's hammer, smelting of iron. They did that. Our brothers and sisters had that technology of smelting iron. All right, brothers and sisters, man. This is me throwing it down, man. This is G World, man. Banging. I'm out, man.